two significant business type stories that occurred today. I'm a business guy. My very nature is a marketing guy. My name is Jeff. It's West Side Jeff. I grew up in Ohio. I went to college at Ohio University. I like to say I didn't go to college. I went to OU. Wasn't like college when I went there. Hell, all you had to do is show up with a check and you got in, and I did. I went to journalism school. My major was advertising. I love the world of advertising. I love the concept of marketing and advertising. And in essence, that's what talk radio is all about. And that's what allows me to have a microphone here and sit in Chris's chair and have a conversation with you. Two big stories I saw that stuck out to me today that impact you and your wallet and me and my wallet that I'd like to get your input on. You probably, unless you follow business news like I do, probably didn't catch these, but let me hit them. One story involves Kroger and Albertsons. It's a merger that's blocked by courts. We'll come back to that in just a second. And the second one is Walgreens. Walgreens is in talks to sell itself to private equity firm Sycamore Partners. One of these stories the government's involved in, and one of them they're not. But should they be? And I'd like your perspective on that. 800-288-9227 is the number. So the story in Kroger and Albertsons. Federal judge today blocked Kroger from acquiring Albertsons, siding with the Biden administration antitrust enforcers who said that the $20 billion supermarket merger would erode competition and raise prices for consumers. So think about that for a second. Have you heard of the business called Walmart? And the FTC jumps in and they squelch this merger because, as they say, the enforcers have said that the $20 billion supermarket merger would erode competition and raise prices for consumers. My question is, really? Do you really think it's going to increase prices, that merger? Now, the judge in this case, Adrian Nelson, agreed with the FTC's argument that Kroger would become the dominant player in the traditional supermarkets if allowed to add nearly 2,000 stores by taking over Albertsons grocery stores, a smaller rival. Nelson rejected the company's counter-argument that selling 579 stores, the plan was for them to merge and sell off 579 of their stores that overlap in various markets, sell them to a company called C&S Wholesale Grocers that would replace the lost competition. Now, Nelson, the judge, wrote in her ruling, evidence shows that the defendants engage in substantial head-to-head competition, and the proposed merger would remove competition. Now, the decision is a significant milestone for the FTC under the Biden administration, whose chair is Lena Khan, has waged legal battles to stop mega deals rather than accept companies' proposed fixes to address competition and competitive concerns. Now, for the companies, the decision is a major blow to a deal that executives have said that it's critical for competing against bigger retail powers like Walmart and Amazon. That was what the attorneys for Kroger and Albertsons have previously said they would likely abandon the deal if the judge sided with the FTC. My question to you is this. Are you buying this crap? Do you, as a grocery shopper, you're a grocery shopper like I am. I go into Kroger 4 times a week. I'd rather buy fresh food and know I'm eating it. I don't buy the days of going in once a month and buying stuff last week. Fresh fruits and vegetables, I want them fresh and I buy them. That's why I go to the store every 3 to 4 days. Are you concerned as a consumer? Would it bother you, and why would it bother you, if Kroger and Albertsons merged? How would that impact you? And what impact do you think that would have on your wallet? What impact do you think that has on your neighbor? What impact do you think that has on other North Texans for those two stores, those two grocers to merge? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm in for Chris Crock. My number's 800-288-9227. What's your perspective on this? Now, an FTC spokesman said that the ruling protects competition in the grocery market, which will prevent prices from rising even more. Representatives from Kroger and Albertsons said the companies were disappointed by the decision, and they're weighing their options. We're talking about the story today. The FTC nixed, for now, the merger of Kroger and Albertsons, blocked by the court, handing a victory to the Biden administration antitrust enforcers. Now, I first saw that story, and my immediate thought was, I wonder if I can find grocery store shares. Because I don't perceive that Kroger or Albertsons are as big as they may think. So I looked them up and I found grocery store shares. According to the latest information from 2022, the most recent information for full year market shares, Walmart had 23.6% share of grocery sold in this country, almost a quarter. Kroger had 10.1. Kroger, less than half of the shares of Walmart. Albertsons had 6.4. You combine Kroger at 10.1, Albertsons at 6.4, and you got 16.5%, still 7 points less than Walmart. The number one retailer of groceries in this country is Walmart at 23.6%. Number two is Kroger at 10.1. Costco is number 3 at 9.2. Albertsons number 4 at 6.4. Publix number 5 at 4.8. So the FTC steps in today and says, no, we're not going to let you merge because we think that's going to drive prices up. And my immediate question is, hello, what about Walmart? You see, Kroger's real competitor and Albertsons' competitor, they're not each other. The real competitors are Walmart and Amazon and Costco and Sam's Club. By the way, Sam's Club is part of Walmart. So my question to you is, you're a grocery shopper. How do you feel about the FTC stepping in and saying no to a merger between Kroger and Albertsons? It could have significant impact to North Texas and around the country. My name is Jeff, Westside Jeff. The number is 800-288-9227. That's the number you can call, like Trish has from Carrollton. Trish, thanks for listening. You're on the Chris Crock Show. My name is Jeff. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Hello from another fellow Buckeye.
OH.
I don't think anybody should tell anybody like these corporations what to do. I'll be surprised if they last as long as they are around because of another big store from San Antonio coming into town, which I'm thrilled. I quit shopping in all the other stores when H-E-B came into the area.
I get it. So you agree with me, get the government out of this.
Yeah, I do. I live 5 minutes from Albertsons, but I don't go there.
Why not?
I don't think... I'd like the quality of the H-E-B a lot better, and it's a different feel. I don't know. It's just hard to explain it, but I don't think the government needs to be involved in that.
Totally agree with you, Trish. Thank you for calling, and thank you for weighing in on that. I agree with you. Thank you very much. We're talking about the story about a judge today. Judge sides with the FTC, which argued that the supermarket deal would have eliminated competition, left shoppers with vulnerable to high prices between the merger of Kroger and Albertsons. So they blocked the merger, the court does. That falls under the Biden administration antitrust enforcers. I'm curious what would happen if that Trump administration were in office now, and if Trump's appointees were in there overseeing that. I'm curious what the ruling would be there. I've got another perspective on it. I'll tell you after. I got to hit a break in a couple minutes, but before that, I want to get to Ryan from Hazlitt. Ryan, thank you for calling. You're on with Westside Jeff.
Hey, I think the challenge that we have with grocery stores merging isn't in the metropolitan areas. It's in the small towns. And Kroger and Albertsons are a small town grocer as well as a big city grocer. In the big cities, you have a lot of choices. In the small towns, you might have one or two grocery stores. one of them's Walmart. If you combined Albertsons and Kroger, you don't necessarily have good competition in some of these small markets. And I don't know, you mentioned earlier you like the fresh. Albertsons and Kroger are very good at fresh. Walmart is not so good at fresh. And if you combine the two, they will dominate fresh, whereas Walmart dominates pretty much, the box goods and the not-so-fresh stuff. So you're going to lose choice in fresh, for sure, if those two merge. You just create one mega company that doesn't have to compete with Walmart in fresh, because nobody goes to Walmart for fresh fruit and vegetables. They're there, but they're just not as fresh as Kroger and Walmart.
So, Ryan, you agree with the FTC jumping in and arguing that the supermarket deal would eliminate competition and not allowing them to merge. You agree with that, right?
I absolutely do, because, I worked for a small grocery store in Arizona as a kid that doesn't really exist anymore because Fry's and Kroger merged, and Albertsons and Safeway merged, and we had 5 or 6 grocery stores in my town when I was a kid, and now there's just Kroger. They dominate that whole town. There's Walmart, but like I said, for fresh, there's only one really choice, and that's Kroger. They call it Fry's there, but it's owned by Kroger.
And your primary argument about not allowing them to merge isn't about what's going on in Dallas. It's about rural America, some of the smaller towns in which you don't have the level of competition, right? So it could be the only grocery store or grocery store chain. Your concern is the domination of some of the rural areas, correct?
Exactly.
Ryan, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. And it's almost as if you set me up on this. I got to hit a break. It's about 3 minutes long. On the other side of that, I'm going to use that exact same argument to make against you to some degree on the Walgreens story. All right, so stick with me, because applying your argument to the Walgreens story might have some merit, might not. We're talking about Kroger-Albertsons merger blocked today by a court, handing victory to the Biden antitrust enforcers, and another deal about ready to go down with Walgreens. I'll tell you about that in about 3.5 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. In for Chris Crock tonight on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock tonight with a business story. We just talked to Ryan from Hazlitt, talking about the story today that the Kroger and Albertsons merger was blocked by a court, handing a victory to the Joe Biden antitrust enforcers. Now, the judge siding with the FTC argued that supermarket deal like that would have eliminated competition, left shoppers vulnerable to high prices. So they blocked the acquisition. So the government stepping in and saying, no, we won't let you merge. We won't allow you to become one entity, one company. Even though part of the merger acquisition was they agreed to sell off 650 stores to another entity that would operate it under a different brand. And my question to you is this. As a grocery shopper, as a consumer, as a person that struggles to make ends meet, as a person who goes to a grocery store and walks out and says, 3 years ago it would have been $100, today it's $250. As a person that looks at grocery store prices and says, oh my God, it's shrinkflation, whatever the government wants to call it. The government's getting involved in this. But the government said no to Kroger and Albertson. When I first saw the story, all I could think about was, okay, let me look up market shares. The number one retailer of groceries in this country is Walmart at 23.6%. Let's round it to a quarter. Kroger at 10%, I'm rounding. Costco at 9.2%. Albertsons at 6.5%. Publix at almost 5%. Albertsons and Kroger merges, that becomes 16.5% market share. It's still less than almost a quarter of the market share of Walmart. Is it really too big to fail? Does the government really need to step in and say, no, we don't want you to merge? And my question is, I wonder what it would look like under a Trump administration. Is this typical Biden-esque policy? I think so. Well, there's another story today that resonates that I want to use Ryan's logic with. Ryan called from Hazlitt and said, Jeff, I used to work in a small grocery store chain in some smaller markets, and the problem is Walmart, the merger, and Ryan's argument's a good argument. The merger isn't about what happens in Dallas where you have tons and tons of stores and competition. It's about the more rural areas. When in some small rural areas, there's only one local little grocery store. And I contend there's always a Walmart not far away. So if it's about what Ryan basically said was, yes, he agrees with not allowing them to merge because it shrinks the competition and it gives more of a monopoly, which will allow them to increase their prices, but not in a city like Dallas where there's a grocery store every 3 blocks on a city, but in more rural areas. So he says yes to government intervention, government control. Now, my opinion is that is misaligned. If the only source of food were grocery stores, I get it, but it's not. You have more restaurants than you do grocery stores. If grocery prices go way too much higher, guess what? We're seeing it now. It's called HMR, home meal replacement. Consumers more than ever today are picking up the phone, calling a restaurant, not just pizza, they're calling great restaurants and buying carry-out food because many times it's less expensive than the grocery store. It's easier than the grocery store. It's faster. It's simpler. Not all the time, but that has gotten into the knickers. That has gotten into the business and stealing the grocery store money. See, grocery stores don't just compete. It's not Albertsons and Kroger. It's not Albertsons, Kroger, and Walmart. It's Albertsons, Kroger, and Walmart. Other grocery stores are competing with restaurants and bars and any place that sells food. They're competing with each other. So the competition is deeper than grocery store. It's not a binary scenario. It's not a singular category of business of grocery stores. It's all the food retailers. Grocery stores, restaurants, bars, anybody that's quick service restaurants, C-stores, they all sell food. So as a consumer, face it this way. If your grocery store prices go up, if they triple grocery store prices, what are you going to do as a consumer? You do what I do. You go out to eat, you order out, and you bring it home and you eat it there. Ryan's argument is they need to stop the merger between Kroger and Albertsons because it hurts more rural communities. I'll tell you about another merger that's going down, a sale that could have a much more sizable impact than grocery that affects your wallet, that affects your health care, that affects your medications and your drugs. I'll tell you that. I get hit Bob of the Hour News in just a second on the 2 minutes on the other side. Sean Allen's in the newsroom. I see him over there saying, come on, let's go. He's got updated stories on what's going on with the United Healthcare story, as well as some business news on the other side of that. I'll come back and explain what I'm talking about. Too big to fail or not too big to fail? Smaller rural communities versus large communities. Mergers and acquisitions and big companies taking over smaller companies and affecting your wallet. I'll tell you what that's all about. Right after the news, that's about 6 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. In for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock tonight. Also the rest of the week and filling in next week as Chris sits in for Casey while Casey takes time off to spend with what he calls his wife, Carrie Underwood. I'll be back with you for a couple weeks here. Thanks for joining me. It's common sense opinion on current events. That's all I offer. I follow news, watch it, pay attention to it, process it, and give you my opinion along the way, and then ask you what you think. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. That's where you got to clue me in on things sometimes. We're talking about all the stories that are going on. We're talking about a big financial story. We'll get to that in about 2 minutes. Let off with a conversation about the shooting incident of the CEO in New York. And the young man, Luigi Mangione, was arrested yesterday. He was charged with 4 counts of murder. He is still in Altoona. He's fighting extradition back to New York, and he's been denied bail. That story is going to get ugly and uglier. My attitude or my opinion is such that this is a white, uneducated or white educated kid from a wealthier, affluent neighborhood who just cracked. And he, to me, fits almost the profile of the anarchists that we saw in Occupy Wall Street. He just snapped. Something tells me mommy and daddy have coddled him, never told him no. He's a kid from the era of everybody gets a trophy. And things didn't go his way, so he just snapped and went off because he can't deal with being an adult. It's my opinion. I want to hear yours, like 800-288-9227, like Michael from Austin. Michael, thanks for calling. You've been on hold for a while. What's your thought on that story?
Well, am I on?
You are. Go ahead.
Okay, Jeff. Yeah, I was just thinking the affluenza teen that is parent ended up going to jail too because she didn't parent the kid and something like that.
Yeah.
And I actually had one of those affluenza kids that attacked me and in front of a witness. Get that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
And he got in Williamson County. He did this. I don't know if you're familiar with Williamson County. They're about getting tough on crime. And he got picked up and charged. And then I wasn't told where he got picked up or who picked him up. I was never charged. I was never told he had this guy's very wealthy. And he ended up getting off scot-free. The county refused to prosecute him. And then by the time I got a hold of the case file, it all been redacted.
Wow.
So and a few bucks went into that county attorney's war chest.
And that's the problem in our country, is the fear of prosecution. The fear of government to prosecute. Michael, thank you for holding on for a while. Thank you for calling. I appreciate your opinion on that. Thank you very much. Certainly, prosecution is a problem. It's funny. During the news, I didn't save it, but during the news, I saw a tweet from San Francisco Examiner, I think it was, about a store in San Francisco that is closing the store somewhere in the city of San Francisco because of lack of sales driven by crime in the neighborhood, theft, and robberies. So the neighborhood's gone down, and it has scared consumers away, and theft is getting in the way. Elon Musk had retweeted it and added a comment that said, "That's why you got to prosecute." Elon Musk is bright and spot on. That's why you got to prosecute. Elon said it best. Jeff is the name, Westside Jeff. We're talking about a financial story also today. Took a call a few minutes ago from Ryan about this story, about a judge stepping in today and saying that Kroger and Albertsons merger is going to be blocked by the court, handing a victory to the Joe Biden antitrust enforcers. The judge sided with the Federal Trade Commission, which argued that the supermarket deal would have eliminated competition and left shoppers vulnerable to high prices. And my question is, how do you feel as a consumer about the court's ruling that two companies can or cannot merge? By the way, because if the merger truly doesn't happen, there was something in here. If the deal is called off, Kroger has to pay Albertsons a $600 million breakup fee. Now, the deal with Albertsons would have nearly doubled Kroger's total store count, exceeding the scale of Walmart's 3,500 supercenters. But in the end, Walmart's market share is almost 25%. Kroger's 10, Albertsons 6. Combined, they're at 16, Kroger and Albertsons, still significantly less than Walmart. And that stifles competition. Ryan called in a little while ago and said, you know what, Jeff, it's not about the competition in big cities like Dallas and Fort Worth. It's more rural areas. It's about protecting the integrity of business in those communities. So, Ryan, let me use your philosophy on a second story that affects your wallet, your pocketbook, your health care, your drugs, your medicine. Walgreens is in talks to sell itself to a private equity equity firm in a deal that would take the pharmacy chain off the public market, so take them out of being a publicly held company and go to private equity after its shares have been on a downward slide for nearly a decade. Now, Walgreens Boots Alliance and Sycamore Partners have been discussing a deal that could be completed early next year, like in January. That's the talk. This was a story I saw earlier across multiple publications. Now, Walgreens' market value reached a peak of over $100 billion in 2015, but it's since shrunk to $75 billion as of Monday. Mounting pressures on both its pharmacy and retail businesses have helped send its shares downward 70% so far this year. Wall Street Journal reported on that in the deal of this earlier today. Now, Walgreens spent more than 12 decades scaling to become one of America's most ubiquitous retailers, with its stores cementing themselves as neighborhood staples. A large portion of Walgreens stores are in some smaller communities, not just in Dallas, Phoenix, Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, New York City, LA. They are kings in the communities that they live in some of these smaller communities. Today, it operates over 12,000 stores across the U.S., Latin America, and Europe. That's according to their website. The company also has invested significantly in healthcare clinics in the recent years. Now, retail pharmacy has long been a rough business. When we talk about too big to fail, when we talk about mergers and acquisitions, when we talk about business cycles and business changing that affect your wallet. I have a friend that I play golf with that it's a husband and wife. They had 3 local independent pharmacies. They ended up retiring. They sold the pharmacies. They sold the brand name. They closed one store. The other 2 stores went to the company that bought them. And I got a chance to talk to them about that. And they said small independent pharmacies are going by the wayside. And that the distribution of drugs, the distribution of medicines, the distribution of your regular day in and day out meds are going back to these big players like Walmart, like Kroger, like Albertsons, like Walgreens. And if Walgreens sells to a private equity firm, as the story goes, there's talk about them closing several stores, the underperforming stores. Well, guess what stores are probably going to close? Many of the stores will be in those smaller communities. It's one of the problems in our country today in rural America, trying to get doctors and healthcare and pharmacies in those communities. I grew up in the state of Ohio. That's where I was born and raised, in Columbus, Ohio. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I went to college an hour and a half southeast of Columbus in Athens, Ohio, at a university called Ohio University. It's a town of 25,000 people, maybe 30,000. It's a town that has a Walmart. They have a Kroger. They may have an independent, I forget if they do today or not, and 1 or 2 pharmacies. In a town like that, when the quest for companies' profitability is on high alert, when a Walgreens closes a store in a community like that, you talk about a significant impact. So the caller I had earlier, Ryan, who said they want FTC to get involved in these communities to save smaller communities where it's less populous. How do you feel about them getting involved in this? Because the FTC and no government entity is involved in this. If Walgreens becomes gets sold to private equity, you know and I know, they're not going to keep their stores open and operating as business as usual. There'll be some closures. There'll be some dramatic changes that could impact those rural areas. How do you feel about that? You live in McKinney. You live in Grapevine. You live in Salina. Guess what? It may not impact you. But you go out 40 miles. You go live in Scurry, Texas. You go live in the more rural areas where you got to drive 45 minutes to a grocery store or a pharmacy. Pharmacy, maybe not a grocery store. Let's talk about that. How do you feel about a company like Walgreens selling off to private equity that could dramatically change the landscape of healthcare and the landscape of drug distribution, meaning medications, legal drug distribution, legal medications? You go to the doctor, you get a script, you go to get it filled. when those places close, it has a significant impact on your wallet and mine. How do you feel about that? Are you in favor of the government not getting involved in a Walgreens deal, but getting involved in Kroger Albertsons? Doesn't make sense to me. I say it's capitalism. I say capitalists wins. I'm a capitalist guy. 800-288 is my phone number, 800-288-WBAP. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You can hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff or dial 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. On the other side of my quick break here, 3 minutes. On the other side of that, we'll take your calls and have the discussion about Kroger and Albertsons merging, blocked by the FTC, but Walgreens going under the radar. Walmart, in the meantime, is the largest retailer in the country when it comes to groceries, and that's not being mandated by government. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM 93.3 WBAP. The name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Sitting in for Chris Crock. Had some exciting news in my house this last week. Married for 30 years now. Mrs. Westside and I have 2 kids. Danielle, she's 28. She got married 2 years ago. Married a boy from Cleveland. They live up in Columbus, Ohio, an area called Upper Arlington. Youngest one is Sydney. She's 24, lives up in Knoxville with some friends, and will always probably be a southern kind of gal. Danielle, my oldest, came down to the house to visit, and handed me about 2 weeks ago, handed me a bag and said, hey, I was at the golf store and picked this up for you. Open it up. I pull out this little thing, and it's a little onesie that said Daddy's Little Caddy, or Grandpa's Little Caddy. I'm going to be a grandfather. And let me tell you, at that moment was the first moment in my life I went, damn, I'm old. That was that moment. There are times in your life where something happens and hits you, and it's like, God, I just aged up. I aged out of demo. I just don't see myself as a grandfather. I think of myself as a young kid. 64 years old. I don't act it. I don't feel it. The radio business keeps you young. The entertainment business keeps you young. I just don't feel like an older person. But that was a moment in my life when somebody, my daughter, had some great news and told me she's pregnant, first grandchild, that I felt old. And my question to you, and we'll talk about it at the top of the hour news, I want to make this Christmas special for her. I'd like to get her something special that she will always remember, that she can, around Christmas, that maybe hang on the tree or something else, that she can always, the rest of her life, when I'm dead and gone, she can say, my dad, your grandfather, gave this to us, and it's very special. And it's not about money. It's a very emotional, momentous occasion. I'd love to hear from you. Do you have a gift idea for that? What sticks out in your mind? 800-288-9227. First, I want to get to Jim in Mississippi because we're talking grocery mergers. And my belief, Jim, is that I have a problem with the FTC getting involved in saying Albertsons and Kroger cannot merge because they'd be too big when Walmart's still going to be larger. Yet the same government says, you know what, they don't have a problem with the whole Walgreens thing. What's your thought on that, Jim? Thanks for calling. You're on with Westside Jeff.
Well, I'm from a town in South Mississippi that has about 15,000 people. They have a Walmart, and they had a Kroger, but it left. And I now live in a town about 20 miles south of there that had a Kroger, and they left. And yes, they have a Walgreens. So I heard that person from wherever he was saying it was going to affect the small towns. I don't see why it's any. You know, they've got to close them for some reason. You know, if you were to look at what Kroger does, I would think they close a lot of stores and open a lot of stores, and I think Albertsons is the same way.
Totally agree with you, Jim. Thank you for listening and thank you for calling. The reality is they're opening and closing stores on a regular basis based off population migration. That's what it's about. And I say capitalism is good. Let them do their thing. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff.